You warthog-faced buffoon.
When you were born, the doctor turned around and slapped your mother?
I fart in your general direction.
Are you trying to give me the double talk?
You scum-sucking pig!
You smoking reefers?
You fool!
Keep an eagle eye out for mayhem and malfeasance.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Brock Lawley program. My name is Brock Lawley. The Scalia death has turned what was a three-ring circus into a straight-up Cirque du Soleil, but everybody's playing with fire. That's how high the volume got turned up. That's how high the stakes got turned up. And of course, we live in the midst of a tug-of-war that we call the culture war, which I trace back to Roe versus Wade. By the way, many people don't know this, nearly 47 states at that point gave a firm no to murdering babies. Supreme Court said, screw you guys, we know best. A huge trampling of everybody's liberty, of states' rights, of Fourth Amendment, of just everything you can imagine. 10th Amendment, I forget about the amendments. Just a huge nuclear bomb went off in the vicinity of the Constitution and the way that people look at that stuff. And the court became very, very powerful, and since then everybody knows it, so they stack it, not as though it wasn't stacked before, but they stack it with partisans. And to some extent, there's been this symbiotic thing, you know what I mean? It's, basically presidents get around to Supreme Court justices. Now you have the head of the Democrats and the president himself just eating the fecal matter of their own words, chewing as fast as they can, swallowing it down, but pretending as if they never said the things they said. And it's driving me nuts. And I know the media is not going to do it. So on this show, we're going to expose them. Let's first hear what a young, very, very dark-haired, none of these salt and pepper days for Barack Obama. This is back in 2007. He had a nice jawline. He was reading crisp off the teleprompter. There was like a lot of reverb on the voice, and the applause lines were on point. Let's listen to what that Barack Obama, 2007 Barack Obama, said about this exact same situation.
You warthog-faced buffoon.
When you were born, the doctor turned around and slapped your mother?
Well, of the Senate. As we all know, there's been a lot of discussion in the country about how the Senate should approach this confirmation process. There are some who believe that the president, having won the election, should have complete authority to appoint his nominee, and the Senate should only examine whether or not the justice is intellectually capable and an all-around good guy.
Does that sound familiar? Simple question. Does it sound familiar? Who's making that case? Let's continue.
I disagree with this view.
You do? You disagree with it? Well, let's hear why.
I believe firmly that the Constitution calls for the Senate to advise and consent.
Sounds a little Ted Cruz-ish to me. B.O. Sounds a little trust Ted Cruz to me.
I believe that it calls for meaningful advice and consent that includes an examination of a judge's philosophy, ideology, and record.
2016 Barack Obama. A little more grays, a lot more road weariness, a ton less credibility.
The Constitution is pretty clear about what is supposed to happen now.
Well, we know that because you just said that the president shouldn't just willy-nilly be appointing justices and neutering Congress. You know how I know that, B.O.? I know that because you just said it to me.
The President of the United States is to nominate someone. The Senate is to consider that nomination, and that nominee is elevated to the Supreme Court.
Now that's strange because you just said that you don't think that should be the way the process works. In fact, we're going to hear later that you firmly thought, it was your firm opinion. I love this hyperbole. You firmly think that this whole president just nominating ideologues to the bench is not a good idea.
Historically, this has not been viewed as a question.
Except by you. in 2007. And we're going to find out you had some very ugly company.
There are some who believe that the president, having won the election, should have complete authority to appoint his nominee. I disagree with this view.
That instant replay is just a pain in the butt, B.O. I mean, it's just a pain in the butt, isn't it? YouTube, for example. Why don't we just get rid of it? It's totally smoking you out. It is smoking you out of your hypocrisy holes.
I'm amused when I hear people who claim to be strict interpreters of the Constitution suddenly reading into it a whole series of provisions that are not there.
I believe firmly that the Constitution calls for the Senate to advise and consent. I believe that it calls for meaningful advice and consent that includes an examination of a judge's philosophy, ideology, and record.
Ooh, those skid marks must be hurting on the buttocks, Barack Obama. You have a firm understanding. That's what you said. That there needs to be advice and consent from a then your party-dominated Congress. Let's see what the head of, now the minority leader, then in the majority, well, let's see what he has to say about this whole ordeal. Because certainly Barack Obama is completely outside the sphere of credibility at this point, right? Totally licking his finger, marching, totally talking out of his Uranus.
You know, the Constitution, Ted Cruz holds the Constitution when he walks through the halls of Congress.
Maybe that's something you should do, Schumer. Instead of making fun of him, maybe you should do it. It's the law by which we derive our rights. I know that's not the way you look at it, but it is the case. So, instead of mocking it, turn the pages from time to time. It's black letter. It's got a decent-sized print. Yeah, it requires a 5th grade education, and the jury's out as to whether you received one. But you should, instead of mocking this document, you should be reading it.
Our job is to go forward with the process, and then we'll see what happens.
That's what you said in 2016. This last week after Scalia died. Let's see what you said in 2007. Yikes!
We should not confirm any Bush nominee to the Supreme Court. They must prove by actions, not words, that they are in the mainstream, rather than we have to prove.
So in conclusion,
2016.
In the end, these 3 questions provide the foundation for thinking about how we ensure that our court reflects what America wants, rather than a diminishing clique of conservative ideology.
Okay, he's going to fumble through this sentence for a little bit, but I'm going to take the opportunity. So would you say that 2 sweeping congressional elections, turning over to the Conservative Party nearly every position of power, not only in Washington, D.C., but also throughout the states and the local municipalities, would you say that that's a resounding wind in the sails of, say, a suggested direction, Schumer? And the fact that we have an election coming up, is that another opportunity for the people, rather than the elites like yourself, to dictate how things are decided, how the court, or do you just see those as impediments? Do you see those as impediments to your all-knowing, elitist, sort of collectivist, centralized governing model? I don't think many people in the audience need to really scratch their head in bewilderment for an answer. Let's hear it as this buffoon stumbles over his talking points.
Rather than what a diminishing clique of conservative ideologues wish for. There's no doubt we were hoodwinked.
Yeah, I would agree, since you literally are word for word saying the exact opposite thing that you said in 2007. I think we were hoodwinked, actually. And a dwindling amount of conservatives, I mean, you're a dwindling party. Your seats in the People's Congress are vanishing like pimples off a teenager's face moving into his early hot 20s. Just vanishing. Gone. Aberrations. Hocus pocus. Goodbye. One seat after the other, after you had a raging, huge majority. And what did you do with it, by the way? You shoved down Obamacare, a huge fart in church by the American people. And this is my favorite part. This next part is my absolute favorite part. It's as if he's refuting his very own party. It's as if 2007, Chuck Schumer, is bending 2016 Chuck Schumer over his 50 figurative knee and applying some old-fashioned, deep South Kentucky Fried Chicken. Go get me a switch so I can deliver some corporal punishment.
Of course, now, only a short while later, we have a better understanding. It is not often in the law that so few have so quickly changed so much.
Oh, now finally we agree, Chucky. Not often that so few have changed so much.
Considering the constitutional harm and dramatic departures that are in store if those few are joined by one more ideological ally.
I could not agree with you more, Chucky. I could not agree with you more. The ideological harm, Chucky says, if that court is joined with one more ally. Chucky, that is brilliant. Watertight. 2007, Chucky, was watertight.
I will do everything in my power to prevent one more ideological ally from joining on the court.
Now that's interesting because the New York Times, the Democratic Party, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, yourself, Barack Obama, and every other talking empty suit in Washington, D.C. with a D beside their name are calling the Republicans racists for saying exactly what 2007 Chucky just said to us with abounding clarity. You are a joke. Don't let the door hit you on the way out of the circle of credibility, Chucky.
Should we interpret your comments just now that you are likely to choose a moderate nominee? Would you consider? No. Okay.
I don't know where you found that.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is an old-fashioned refute. A smackdown, if you will. Stick that in your leftist pipe and smoke the timber weeds of your hypocrisy. Smoke it! Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the Brock Lawley program.
Long live the new media.